Based on a poll, 72% of internet users are more careful about personal information when using a public Wi-Fi hotspot. What is the probability that among 3 randomly selected internet users, at least one is more careful about personal information when using a public Wi-Fi hotspot? How is the result affected by the additional information that the survey subjects volunteered to respond? Okay, so let's take a look at some of the key information in here. Okay, 72% of the users are internet users. So again, how do we write that as a decimal? Okay, the other thing is, what is the probability that among the 3 randomly selected, and then it says at least one is another key word. So we need to look at those when we go through the problem. Now, we're going to let event A equal at least one of the 3 randomly selected internet users being more careful with personal information when using a public Wi-Fi hotspot. To find the probability that at least one of the 3 randomly selected internet users is more careful with the personal information, we first need to find the probability that none of the 3 randomly selected internet users are more careful. Now, the probability of at least one can be computed using the rule of complements. The rule of complements states the following expression is true for events A and the complement of A, where the complement of A indicates that the event A did not take place. So here is our formula. Probability of event A is equal to 1 minus the probability of the complement of A. Now we want to identify the event that is the complement of A. Well, the complement of A is that none of the internet users are more careful. Now, to find the probability of the complement, we first find the probability that an internet user is not more careful with personal information while using a public Wi-Fi hotspot. Therefore, we would have the following. Probability is not more careful is equal to 1 minus the probability that is more careful. Well, the percentage that we found from the beginning of the problem was 72%. So it's going to be 1 minus the decimal of that, which is 0.72. So therefore, the probability that is not more careful is 0.28. Now what we want to do is we want to find the probability of the complement using the multiplication rule for independent events, rounding to 3 decimal places. The multiplication rule for independent events states that the probability of 2 independent events occurring is the product of their individual probabilities. This can be extended to 3 independent events. Now again, we're looking for 3 random up here where it says 3 randomly selected internet users. So the probability of the complement of A is equal to the probability of user 1 is not more careful, and user 2 is not more careful, and user 3 is not more careful. So we found the complement was 0.28. So we're going to take 0.28 times 0.28 times 0.28, which is the same thing as 0.28 to the 3rd power. So if we want to do that on our calculator, 0.28 to the 3rd power gives us the following. So we get 0.021952, and we're rounding out to 3 decimal places, which gives us 0.022. Now what we want to do is find the probability of event A using the rule of complements. The probability of event A is equal to 1 minus the probability of the complement of A. So there's our formula, and we know that the probability of the complement is 0.022. We're going to take 1 and subtract that value, and we get 0.978. Therefore, if 3 internet users are randomly selected, there is a 0.978 probability that at least one of them is more careful with personal information when using a public Wi-Fi hotspot. Now let's go back to the second part of the question. It says, how is the result affected by the additional information that the survey subjects volunteered to respond? Well, a probability result can be invalid if the sample is not randomly selected, or if the sample is representative of the population, or if one outcome has an effect on later trials. So we would say the following. It is very possible that the result is not valid because the sample may not be representative of the people who use public Wi-Fi.